What's up, guys? Jaxel here, author of the XSplit panel writer that many of you guys use in XSplit and OBS. It's a simple program. It allowed you to write text onto an image so that you can use those for scoreboards and lower thirds. Putting this video together to show that I've rewritten the program and I've made a lot of changes, and I'm going to explain why I've made these changes and why it's better. So, we look at the old version, and the old version actually took text and wrote them onto images. And the reason for this is the program was written before OBS came out. It was written for XSplit, and XSplit's text renderer was really bad. So rather than writing text files, I wrote images because it allowed us to do things that the text renderer couldn't in XSplit, like negative margins and glow effects and slanting and stuff like that. And so the new version, since we're all using OBS now, and we've all switched away from XSplit, and it's going to be using text instead of images because the text renderer in OBS is a lot better than it was in XSplit. And it allows us to do extra things like scrolling text, animated text, or applying the text into ActionScript if any of you guys use ActionScript on your streams. So for now, let's kill the old version and open the new version, which is now called Scoreboard Assistant. It's called Scoreboard Assistant because I wanted to remove the word XSplit from the title because that implies that you can only use it with XSplit when it also works with OBS. So let's start the program up. And the first thing it's going to do is launch an error. Unable to load config file, launching with generic scoreboard. That's simple. First time running the program, there's no config file. Alright, so what we have here is a generic scoreboard. Now, that's not good enough. So you'll see a little down arrow here, and you click that, and some options show up. You can add more scoreboards. You can add text fields, lower thirds, set your options, import, export, config files, etc. So let's show that. Text fields, let's call it event. And this ID here basically tells you where it's going to send and retrieve database files. It does it through a folder. So it's going to get it from event. Now this generic tab here, we can actually get rid of it by right-clicking on the save button and clicking remove tab. And now that tab is gone. And so what this does is this allows us to have additional scoreboards and stuff. So let's go back to versus, and let's name it versus 2 because it's got 2 players. And then we can add one for versus 4. Versus 4 because it's 4 players. And if we want, we can add additional tabs of the same type. So let's add another, more text. And see, so now we have 2 text tabs. They generally do the same thing. But what happens is you can do this so that you can have different databases for each tab. So I can make a versus tab for Street Fighter, a versus tab for Marvel, a versus tab for Smash Brothers, and all the databases for players, games, and whatnot will be separate. And this way I can have a different pool of players for each tab. Now, of course, you can also make, since we showed here that the ID determines what database it pulls from, you can actually have multiple tabs that are pulling and sending data from the same database. It's a little quirky, though, and I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. All right, so let's close this third tab. We don't need that. And close the application. When we close the application, it's going to make a config file. And the config file basically defines what it's going to do the next time the program loads. So load the program up, and our tabs are still there. Of course, there are the additional options. I can say always on top, and then snap to edges, and they'll do what you would expect it to do, or always be on top, things like that. All right, we don't need the always on top. All right, so let's go back to the verses, and we've got some stuff here. So let's go player 1, player 2, matches first round, FR double pipe first round. I'm going to explain why I did that in a moment. And this is SSF4 double pipe Super Street Fighter 4. And let's make that a little bigger so we can see all the text. And then what I'm going to do is click Save. We click Save, and you'll see a new folder just got created called Output. And in this output, we'll have verses 2, and because that's the ID I put in when I made the tab. And then it has files. And the text files are pretty simple. So, player 1 is the contents of player 1, player 2, score 1, score 2, match, and game are all contexts. Now, you'll also notice there's a game A, game B, match A, match B. And this is because of these double pipes. Now, you'll notice that the game and match, their tooltip text here, not tooltip, the label text is italicized. And that's because I've italicized anything in any field that supports this double pipe system. So game match supports it here. None of these support double pipes. So if you put the double pipe in, for match, if I click on the match text, it will be FR first round. But if I do match A, it'll be just FR, and match B just first round. It'll separate by the double pipe. And there are reasons you would want to do this. And basically, you'd want to do it for copy texting. So if I were to edit the copy text, you can see the prefix. Let's make that recording versus ampersand. All right, so we edited that copy text. There we go. And if I were to right-click and select Copy Verses, let's open up a text file. That will copy to the clipboard recording SSF4 FR player 1 versus player 2. And it only copies the game A and the match A information. Now, if I had just made it first round and then click Copy Verses, it would have been SSF4 first round. That's because there's no double pipe, so it's just going to take the entire string. I don't like that, so let's bring the double pipe back. All right, so now we're back to the program, and we wrote these files. How do you put these files into XSplit? I'm going to right-click to the scene, add text. Let's call this text player 1, and that's going to open up from the text file verses 2, player 1. Let's change the font to Century Gothic, size 22. Custom extents, let's make it 390 by 32. Let's add an outline, wrap the text left, and we click OK. And what we have here is a simple text file. And we can do the same thing for player 2. Text player 2. Got the player 2. Century Gothic, size 22. Custom extents, 390 by 30. Let's wrap the text right this time. Use the outline. As you can see, I've done a lot of the math in advance. All right, and there we go. Now we have the stream with player 1, player 2. Now you can use the drag and drops to rearrange the text however you want and put them where you want. Another advantage of using text files instead of image files, like we did with the old version. You can go back to the scoreboard. And let's get rid of that. Let's go back to the scoreboard and swap players and click Save. And as you see, the players swap. OBS's text renderer is really good, and it's very quick. Now, if we look at a few more settings in this application, you'll notice that we have the basic scoreboards. And you'll notice that I was able to right-click this to bring up a menu. So if we click Reset Players, it resets the players. Reset Scores, it resets all the scores to 0. There's also Export Data. And you'll notice over here we have one folder, and that's Output. With Output, there always has to be an input. When we click Save, these players were added to a database. Let's add another player, player 3, and player 4. And then we click Save. Now, they're in the program's database, but they're not in an actual database. So if we were to close the program and then reopen the program, and we go back here, there's no information left. So let's go back. Player 1, player 2, first round, Super Street Fighter 4. Alright, and then we click save again, and once again they're in the programs database. Now let's say you wanted to save this information permanently. You right click and select export data, and it's going to create a new folder called input. And then this is 3 text files. Game, this is basically a list of everything in the database. We have match, and of course we have players. Now there's only a single player file because both player 2 and player 1 share the same database. So if we keep the players thing open and put in player 3, player 4, and then we were to export data, this file will get updated, and now you can see that the database is bigger. And so what happens is we reopen the program, and it'll load from those databases. So now the files the players are here, the first round is there, Street Fighter, and player 2. Now, you'll notice that there is a first line with this hash or pound, pipe, pound, and this is for default information. So right now it says player 1, and when we started the program up, it was blank, and that's because the default information is blank. What we can do is double click on the label. Every tab supports this, so anywhere there's a label, you can double click on the label. So we're going to double click on player 1, and we're going to set default text here, and I'm going to do player name, competitor. I like that word better. Competitor name. Alright, and then we're going to click edit default text, and then we're going to export that data again. This is going to update competitor name. There we go. And so next time we load the program up, we have default text here in these fields. It's a very simple program, very easy to use. Most of the tabs work pretty much exactly the same. We do have this lower thirds tab, which let's call commentary. And I already have a database set up. No, I don't. Okay, so we've got this commentary, Darth, Arma, at Darth, Arma, and KDZ at KD Zaster. You can see because of the italicized, it supports a double piping. And you can tell with all the swapping, these all use the same exact database. We click save, and we've got those double pipes. And the reason for that is you want to have like their name in big text and then their Twitter text in a different field somewhere else, but you still want them linked together. Now, some other tabs you may see is Hitbox, Twitter, and Twitch. Now, Twitter and Twitch I haven't figured out yet. I'm not that good with OAuth in C#. If anyone out there has any ideas or can get in contact with me to help me out with this, we can get that working. Hitbox doesn't use OAuth, so I was able to get that partially working. And I say partially because Hitbox's API is kind of immature and doesn't actually have any documentation on how to update stream titles in games. So we're going to add that. And, you know, I can do login here because it doesn't use OAuth. Let's log in. And there we go. It automatically retrieved my icon. This is the title of the stream. This is the game it's currently listed as playing, the number of followers, and the number of viewers. Now that was supposed to count down. I'll fix that in a moment. It's supposed to count down and, you know, update all the information every 60 seconds. Alright, so it automatically retrieved all the information, and as usual you can log out and remove the tab. As I said, anyone got any tips or anyone get in touch with me so I can figure the Twitter and Twitch out, and I'll have that out in the next version. Anyway, peace out guys, and thanks for your interest.